Ginge. Ah.
In 1993, Pearl Jam released their second album, Versus, the follow-up to 10, no mean feat at all. I've got my vinyl copy here, again, gatefold. Nice clip of them in the studio. In this episode, I'm joined by the guys from Pearl Jam UK. If you haven't seen them, you need to see them. They are the best Pearl Jam tribute out there, without a shadow of a doubt. Please like and subscribe to my page and watch this space for more classic album podcasts. But in the meantime, enjoy. I'm delighted to be joined by the sensational lads from Pearl Jam UK. We've got Pearl Jam UK's very own Eddie Vedder, Mr. Kevin Dixon.
Hello.
Stone Gossard, Mr. Adam Webb.
Hiya, Mike.
And Mike McCready, who is Rob Clougher. Hiya, Rob.
Hello.
Don't think I've met you before, dude. So just start with telling us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to at the minute and stuff like that.
At the minute, I've had a child quite recently, and we've just escaped to the lakes. So we're in a lovely part of the lakes in Pooley Bridge. It's very calm and mellow. So trying to chill out. As for band-wise, I've just known these two for eons. Adam, since he was a child. When he used to teach him a little bit.
I'm still a child, so that kind of
works. I think I met Kev when I was in college when I was 18.
Yeah.
And we were in bands and stuff for years, but all over the show. So
I was led astray by Bob Clougher. That's
yes,
what happened.
yeah. That Leeds Festival, she'll go.
The less said the better.
And didn't you go and see Pearl Jam at Leeds? Didn't you both see Pearl
Yeah,
Jam?
that was the one.
That was it, man. 2006. That was the first time I saw Pearl Jam.
First time.
It was the first time, man. You were there, Mike?
Yeah, and I lost my car keys, and my dad had to come up on his motorbike with the spare keys, and then we went to Amsterdam the following day, and we saw them in the Vitesse football stadium.
Oh, that's boss.
Nice. Yeah. Anyway, that's another podcast. Kev, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
No.
Cool.
Yeah. So okay. Well, yeah. I'm Kev. I do the role of Edward Lewis Severson III, otherwise known as Eddie Vedder, formerly Eddie Muller. Yeah, and I've known Rob and Adam, as they said, for a long time. Rob and I first met. Yeah, we were 18, 19 years old. So that was 3 years ago. I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember Adam being a young boy with other young boys. We just kind of went from there.
I used to come and see their band when they were playing together. So.
The London show.
Yeah,
the London show. His dad gave me grief for leading him astray. I remember that.
Well, that's a great segue for Adam. Now, I think we may all agree, Stone is the coolest member of Pearl Jam.
He is, and so it would be fitting if I was the coolest member of Pearl Jam UK.
Naturally.
It's one of the few compromises we had to make.
Yeah, and authenticity is usually key, but we somehow get by on that one.
Yeah. No, Stone's definitely the coolest. Everybody knows that. There's a lot of love for Jeff as well, but Stone's definitely the man. Stone was always the man, wasn't he? So
yeah, man. Yeah. Understated.
All right, so we'll go straight in with track number 1, which was actually the first single that they released, and it's called Go. Now, I can't think of a heavier, angrier, better song to open up an album with than Go. So, Rob, do you want to start us off with Go?
Go was, well, as I said, this was our going out album when I was a kid. This was the one. So to start off with that track. And the crazy intro as well. I think, didn't we try and do that crazy intro at one time as well?
Yeah, we tried
doing it, weren't we? But it was like, you need the impact to come in straight away. When you're live, on the album, it's fantastic, obviously. But yeah, we were trying to put that together a little bit where we just sort of build out the intro part for as long as we could before it actually came in. Yeah. And also, kicking solo. Love it for the solo.
Yeah.
And if that's a little bit too early in the set, I get a little bit worried. Yeah. Got to be a bit warmed up for that one. Yeah, but I do like that one. But plenty of war, it's fine.
The Kirk Hammett rule: if in doubt, war it out.
Yeah, Kirk Hammett's effect, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, how?
Is this one in Drop D as well?
Yeah, Drop D. Yeah.
Adam, have you got anything to add to
another guitar as well.
Yeah.
Another guitar added to the scene.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love doing Go. it's a fiddly one as well. Like I seem to remember like still revising and figuring that riff out, like even when we were on tour, like still making little changes to it here and there, just to like little intricacies about it. And it happens with loads of this stuff. Yeah, man. It's always a belter, man. It's always, I think we always do it quite early, don't we? Because it's just, it lifts, it just brings the roof off the place, really. And yeah, it's nice doing the intro, but like just having that like do when it just absolutely nails you to the world, doesn't it?
Goes out. The outro, the build on the outro, and then and you're done.
Yeah, man. The drums at the end, absolutely, yeah, man. I love doing that tune, man.
Well, talking about the drums, I absolutely love the snare sound on this album. No, Brendan O'Brien, I think every album he's involved with, the snare sound's absolutely banging.
Yeah,
Blood Sugar, another great example.
It's one of his hallmarks, isn't it? Is getting that really good, like in the room drum sound, which is why they wanted to work with him as well. He also worked on the second and third Rage Against the Machine albums as well, amongst other things. But yeah, he's renowned, isn't he, for getting that unbelievable drum sound, which I think was even better again on Vitology, which was obviously might be one of your future ones, but
100%.
That drum sound, that whole mix, but especially that drum sound on Vitology as well, was just one of the best things I'd ever heard at the time.
So it's almost like they built the album around the drums. Get the drums to sound great first of all. I'm not going to say everything else is incidental, but if you get the drums to sound great, you're onto a winner.
Yeah, well, like Adam said, we tend to play it earlier in the set. We didn't always. At the very beginning, we did try it later on in the set. But then I realised that you can't sing it the later it is in the set. So it was
really?
that them choruses are so taxing on your throat. It's so tiring. And anything after about 4 or 5 songs into our sets, because we, like them, we play for like 2.5 hours, 3 hours some nights. And, you know, once you get a few songs into the set, trying to get them notes in the chorus are just almost impossible. So we always do it within the first 4 or 5 songs every time. Got to pace it. It's really, really hard to sing. Really difficult, that one. It's all in the throat, you see. So you're kind of pushing your throat up to get them and chorus notes, and it's so tiring. It's so tiring. But it's a hell of a song to play. Definite favourite, definitely.
Yeah, it's just a great intro, 100%. Well, let's move on to the next track, which is Animal, and this was the 3rd single, and part of the lyrics with a 5 against 1. I believe the album was going to be called that originally.
Yeah.
So, Adam, do you want to start us off on Animal? Who's the 5? Who's the 1?
The 5's the 1. I don't know. It's an ancient riddle, isn't it? You'd have to ask Eddie.
The 5 is usually everybody in the band, and then the 1's me. It's like everybody up to me. No.
It's the other one, your split personality or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But, I thought it was the media, wasn't it? Isn't that what he talked about? Was like it was about being against all the record labels or something like that. I think they had people poking their little noses in, trying to say, "Oh, this needs to be different," and that, and they were like, "Fuck off," you know. I've heard a few different sort of like interpretations of this lyric. But I think there was a couple of sort of on the record things from the time that said like it was more about like frustration, wasn't it, with either the label or the or the meat or just the position they were in.
Size of what they were at the time.
It was up, but I thought it was kind of an own thing. It's meant to be about gang rape as well, isn't it? I don't know if you throw that in.
You see, so that's again, I've heard that too. So there's loads of different ones, but there's 1 or 2 quotes out there that narrow it a bit.
There's an interview with Ed, like back in the day, and it was like when they were mixing the album and mixing that song in particular. One of the A&R guys were like, "Look, why don't you turn the vocals up in the mix a little bit?" And Eddie said, "Well, I told him what the song was about," and he was like, "Okay, yeah, keep it down."
Right.
So
well, there you go.
That's something that always stuck, and that I remember that in like '93 being said. So I always assumed that's just what it was about. But I have seen these other metaphorical things about the band against the labels and all that. But I always assumed it was about a lady and 5 guys. So.
Yeah, I'd never read that one before.
I haven't heard that one.
I always assumed it was.
See this? Truth. Okay.
Heavy salad.
The pressures of following up 10 and endless interviews and media intrusion. I just assumed that it was kind of, no, fuck all that. You know, we don't want the limelight. And if anything, for me, this album was actually shunning that. Rob, have you got anything to add to Animal?
Yeah, Animal, other than being one of my favourites to play, but the memory of them playing on the MTV Awards
Ooh.
Yeah, man.
Sticks with
Shout.
me. In fact, it sticks with us on stage, doesn't it? Do you remember? You remember when we started doing it and we were like, should we all jump? Should we jump like they did on the? Yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, that always sticks in my head because that wasn't that. That was way before it came out, wasn't it? As well. Am I wrong?
The album hadn't been released. It was the '93 MTV Awards. Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally went and got the T-shirt made up from the Space Boy one. You know, the one the Stones wearing in that, and they found the same shorts and everything like that. And like that's literally like what I love that T-shirt, man. So that look that he has on there, and that's them at the peak, and they sound incredible in that video, man. It's just like because I guess it was one of the earliest ones. Maybe I don't know when. I don't know how long Cruisen had been with them because obviously Cruisen was on 10, wasn't he? But Abraziz was. I don't know how much recorded stuff there was. How many video? I don't know when Cruisen left and Abraziz took over from the 10 stuff.
Cruisen left before they toured. They had Matt Chamberlain come in after Cruisen. Matt Chamberlain came in and did a few shows, and Matt Chamberlain's actually on the Alive video.
Yes, yeah, he is. But for whatever reason, there's something about that, whether it's the way it's recorded or maybe it has got something to do with Dave being in there. Like, but it's just like it sounds so peak Pearl Jam to me. That performance, you know, it's so loud, it's so aggressive. It's so well performed. It's groovy as well, and that's what I love about a lot of this album. Actually, is how aggressive but groovy it is.
Yeah,
like, you know,
aggressive funk.
At times, absolutely, yeah. And Abraziz is obviously a massive part of that, isn't he?
Oh,
if not the biggest part of it.
This is that song that you can play too fast as well and lose that funk.
Yeah, you got it. We sort of things he always said was, was like slow, play everything slow, and it's like, it's the key, isn't it? Just like groove it out. Absolutely.
It's heavier, slower, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. Same with even flow.
Chorus, yeah. I notice when it gets to the chorus and I have to drop down a little bit and just see that little funk part. That's when I notice if it's too fast. I'm like, oh, that feels wrong.
Yeah, because you kind of do the 16th notes in between the actual notes. Yeah.
Sound funky.
Oh well.
It's like,
well, after an absolutely barnstorming start, we come to track 3, which is Daughter, second single. Kev, do you want to lead us off on Daughter?
Yeah. Okay, so Daughter. Yeah. Meant to be about a girl with, well, it's the same, like a girl with learning difficulties and stuff like that, maybe. Like, I feel like I've got them today because I can't remember words, but what the hell? Yeah, well, it was originally called Brother. The song was called Brother, but they also had another song called Brother as well, which is a completely different one. But Daughter was originally called Brother, I think it was, or something like that. But
it was written from the perspective of another member of the family, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. So
in the family, in it, yeah.
But yeah, it's just, and it was kind of like when I first heard this one, it was the first time you kind of heard Pearl Jam being slightly different than what you thought they were. You know, there was just something different about that song. You know, with the acoustic led kind of thing, and I think it was the first time you kind of heard the stand-up bass being used in something as well that Jeff was playing on the stand-up. So
I was going to say, was that a fretless bass? But it's
the kind of like the stand-up fretless thing you do. Yeah, so there was just something like, there was a bit of a vibe about that where you're like, oh, okay, you know, they're definitely on this album, they're trying different things, and it was quite refreshing to hear it at the time. A wonderful song and really interesting. I mean, that crazy guitar tuning on it as well, the GBD thing.
I think it's kind of like an open G, but with the low A tune to a G as well. I guess that's so we didn't have to worry about catching it when he was strumming it.
Yeah, well, it just gives it that massive ring. You've got this, what do you call it? Like a drone almost with it. It doesn't sound like, but that's the technical term. We have like that one note ringing underneath it. Pedal, exactly. That's the one, Mike. I mean, I think when you have a band making a second album, don't you want to see them? You want to hear new things from them. And this was like the first track, I think, where it was like you really did hear something completely different from 10, didn't you? There's just nothing like it.
Production level is just like it's just so intimate, isn't it? Straight away, that's those first few notes, which when you're live.
Well, that's the thing. You hear the tuning straight away.
Yeah, you literally can tune your guitar off that. Like, well, only to that tuning, but it's another one of them where it's like they've just pressed record and they've just faffed around for a minute, haven't they, before he starts the song, and that gives it that live feel and that like performance thing.
Everyone remembers it, don't they? Everyone remembers it. They'll all cheer the instant you do that little part, won't they?
And it's a nice little, I think with things like that, we're kind of little snubs to like, we're going to make this hard for radio to do this. You know, it wasn't just going to be like click, dun, 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 and the riff come in. It was just.
You guys ready?
little things like that. Yeah, exactly, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I love that song. And it's mad how many lyricists at that point or singers were writing songs that dealt with that kind of subject matter, but then also from the perspective of a woman as well. Like like Eddie Vedder is one of the few male artists who's ever made any attempt whatsoever to try to write from the perspective of a woman and do it as well as he has done. And I think that's an interesting sort of thing that he does with that song, really. And the level of insight and his empathy comes through in that, because it's such a convincing and thoughtful lyric.
Well, because also most the majority, it seems to me, of songwriters write songs generally objectifying women. So it was quite different to hear, a male lyricist kind of championing, things from the woman's perspective, like so. And I think we talk about this a lot as a band. We say like that there's a really kind of like overwhelming amount of like female fans who come to the shows, essentially because we feel that they really identify with the band a lot more than most women do with most other rock bands as well. I think because of that kind of unique almost perspective he gives as a male, but kind of trying to understand the female perspective, I suppose.
Absolutely.
It's definitely like a safety net, isn't it? They feel very safe. We've had that in the past, haven't we? With a lot of people who there's that safety thing of you're all in it together kind of thing. You all know.
Are you sure that's why you get a lot of females to gigs? Is it not to see Eddie Vedder?
Yeah, that's too.
I don't think it hurts. But once they're there, you have to actually like the songs and identify with them.
Not now, though. He's cut all his locks off.
And I think there's still quite a lot of fans out there, to be honest. But yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're only 3 tracks in, but what's your favourite tracks off the album? Adam, what's your favourite track off the album?
That's a really good question. Probably Rearviewmirror. It probably feels like a little bit of a obvious. It feels basic, as the kids say, but it's just a belter, isn't it? It's so well. We can talk about it when we get there, but it's just because it's the way it's arranged and the way it's delivered and performed, and it's it's subject matter as well is something that lots of people at different times can get their heads around. And I would probably go for Rearviewmirror.
Rob, what's yours?
Mulling it over between Glorified G and Leash. But music, I've always loved Glorified G. I always wanted to play it live. I remember when we finally did, I was so pleased. But Leash was the one at the end, just the one before we leave the house to go out. That was it. That was it. We are young. Before you hit the bus. And living where we lived, it was a big thing because there was only one bus every couple of hours. So if you missed it, that was the night gone.
And then
there was no time to think.
As you're going out,
Indifference, you have to switch it off and go. Yeah.
As you're going out, you shout to your mum, "We'll be back at 10, Mum."
Yeah.
Kev, what's your favourite track on the album?
My favourite track on that album is Indifference.
Yeah, well, you do. I saw your acoustic stream, and you did it on there.
Right, okay. You saw that?
Yeah. I couldn't believe it when you did it. I'll drop a link to it in the video description.
Yeah,
but that's like the least one I expected, actually.
It's just, I don't know. There's just something about that. I think it's like the tone it leaves the album on. It's really kind of like, lyrically and all that kind of stuff. But it was just, I think at the time it always meant a lot to me as well. What the song's about, whatever. But I always kind of connected that. I mean, there's all the rockers on there, and I adore. I mean, overall, I think it's a wonderful album. I don't think there's a bad song on there.
Yeah.
But a real favorite, especially now, like all these years later, definitely Indifference for me. And I love when we get to play it as well. We don't play it a lot, but when we do, it's one of them songs where you just I feel myself choking up when we're playing it and everything. It really
it's a deep cut. It's a fan's favorite deep cut.
It's one of those where I always remember to back off a little bit, because if I do too much with the delay on that, it totally wrecks it. You've got to really just give it space. It's nice.
Well, let's move on to the next track, which is my favourite track on the album, and I'm sure I've pestered you to do this one before, and it is Glorified G.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Would it be a D augmented chord in there?
Yeah.
Is it diminished? Yeah. Well, Rob, do you want to start us off on Glorified G, since it was one of your favourites as well?
Yeah, it was big. I don't know why. I think going back, thinking about it when we were talking about doing this the other day, I was remembering being at school and we were all arguing about the lyrics at the end about being about a pelican. Not a pelican. There's no pelicans involved. There's a pellet gun. It's a theme. It's a gun. There's a yeah. But I remember that from school. But also the riff was just so catchy, and then trying to play the riff and realize it's more of a finger picking thing on the album. It's like a chicken picking thing that he does.
Your fingers
Kind of catchy. But when he plays it live, he just doesn't bother to do that. He just kind of picks around a little bit with the flexion. But on the original, it was always chicken picking. I think that's why I liked it so much, because it was into finger picking and stuff like that in school. So much I wanted to play it like that.
Interestingly for that song as well, and again something that's stuck with me right from when it was released, like reading interviews and things at the time, which they didn't do very many of, so it's probably why I've remembered them. But Eddie said he felt at that time that Glorified G was their most Pearl Jam like song. He said because it's just always on the verge of just falling apart. He said it's just kind of always on the edge of not quite working, but then it does. And you know, and he I think for Ed as well, that was one of his favorite songs when they put that album out. He really enjoyed it, like, so great song.
And the middle-age section, the beastly middle-age section, which I remember stealing for a band when I was a kid. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
the fills that Dave does around that middle bit, the super fast.
Oh yeah,
the
power of it.
Unbelievable.
Well, he is my favourite Pearl Jam drummer, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was clear that he had to leave because he just kind of, it went to his head, really, didn't it? And didn't he come in the studio with some guns?
Well, that was what that song was about, wasn't it? It was
a
conversation, wasn't it? And it was literally Eddie wrote down the conversation he had where he said, "I bought a gun," and Eddie was like, "What the fuck, you bought a gun?" He said, "Well, yeah, in fact, I've bought two." And Eddie being obviously, you know, but then when you think where Dave's from Texas, isn't he? Dave was a Texas guy, so you know they walk around like fucking cowboys down there, don't they, with like holsters and everything? So you can kind of understand it in some ways, but the thing about it going to his head, I don't think so. But yeah.
No, was it not a case of I bought a sports car and loads of guns and kind of thing? And he loved the studio though, didn't he? He loved the lavish studio, but I've read that Eddie hated it because it was too nice.
Yeah, he said he had a hard time, didn't he, with the album, because they were in this really plush, wonderful place, and so he ended up sleeping in his car for most of the time. So he'd go and sleep in his car and work, and then come back to the studio and then go stay in his car, which also was what led to W.M.A, which is one of the later tracks as well.
Yeah.
He said he'd been sleeping in his car for a few days and he was sitting off speaking to some homeless guy, and he was sitting on a bench and chatting. He said, and these I think the police came over to him and this other guy, and Eddie thought, oh, you know, here we go, kind of one of them things. And then he started picking on the black dude sitting next to him, you know. So that was his first little thing with kind of a anti-racism song as it was. But
yeah, well, we'll get onto that in a bit because it's quite poignant and relevant to what's going on at the minute, which is crazy considering the album was 1993. But I guess it's always been the case. But Adam, have you got anything else to add on Glorified G?
Glorified G. Oh, really? I think it's interesting to chat about Eddie and Dave. I think it was just a culture clash between those two, wasn't it? Really. I mean, you got, like you say, Dave's this like Texan who's probably full of like, you know, he's brash fella and big, and Eddie was obviously just like, you know, completely introverted at that point, except when he got on stage and just exploded. You know. And it's a shame, really, because if they could have got on better, who knows what else they would have. Not that, you know, it wasn't boss what they did with all their subsequent drummers, but
it's still fun.
Yeah, but you know, I love doing that tune. I love that. That's got a mental tuning as well. I think that's got the daughter tuning. The G.
Yeah.
And it's got the boss the intro thing. I love that guitar. It's one of my top 5 like Stone parts. That when in the intro comes in, he's just like nah, and it's like, it makes me laugh. It makes me like laugh maniacally. You know what it reminds me of? It makes me think of, well, not even reminds me, but like it kind of, it's almost like primacy, that, you know what I mean? Like the way the dissonance of those parts and the guitar part that's doing the country thing. It's just about it. And again, it's like the daughter shout where you're like saying you want to hear different things from a band on their second album, and that again, it's going country almost, isn't it? With the finger picking and all these little funny little country style dissonance. You can
imagine them just jamming in the room. Do you remember the Shotsmans, the album cover? And you can see them all just sit. You can just imagine them jamming that one around the room with acoustics, can't you? You can see how it works.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah,
there we go.
Great tune.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
I've got the later version that's got a slightly different cover on it.
Yeah, that's a different sheep, isn't it?
Yeah. I did have the original, and I had it on orange vinyl, and I stupidly sold it because I had a little bit of a record shop going, and I sold it in there. So I did rebuy it because it is my favourite Pearl Jam album. So it's a little bit decadent of me to have picked this one, but hey ho.
I still have the original T-shirt that was released in '93.
Oh, wow.
With the stuff on. I've still got it now. Yeah. And they go on eBay for like 150, 160 pounds or something like that. Both of them.
We sort of borrowed that idea for something once as well, didn't we? I'm sure.
Yeah. I remember. For the junk culture thing, the junk culture release.
Yeah. Little
We've always been stealing from them. Always.
Yeah, just that. It's a good one to steal from.
Yeah.
I love the bit as well where Ed says kindred to being an American as well.
Yeah.
I always used to have make my own thing up for what he was saying there. So when I read the lyrics, I didn't even realise he was saying that.
Like the pelicans.
That's the one.
Kindred to being a pelican.
Yeah, kindred. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next track, and I've got this down as being a single as well. I'm not sure whether they released it everywhere as a single.
Which one?
Dissident.
Yeah, Dissident was a single.
Yes,
yeah,
we did. Yes, it was that live one with the extras. Remember, I've got that box.
Was it the live version?
It was the Atlanta, Georgia concert, wasn't it? April 6th, 1994, or something like that. Somewhere around that time. But it was broadcast on Radio 2 live, and I stayed up to listen to it. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, over here. And I remember sitting in my room in complete darkness with headphones on, listening to Pearl Jam in the Fox Theatre, Atlanta, Georgia, 1994. But that was all the bonus tracks then. So you had Dissident as the main part, and then all of the live tracks were kind of. I think it was a three discs, three-part CD or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a single. Yeah, at least it definitely was in the UK.
Definitely a single, and it was the cover was like a really close-up shot of Eddie, like bent over, wasn't it? Like you couldn't even tell it was him.
It was on the stage in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. So great.
Like a blurry.
So I've read here that it's about somebody taking in a criminal or a criminal on the run or something.
Yeah, it's again he never completely says, does he? What
no
songs are about? But yeah, I mean, if you take the literal meaning of what a dissident is, then it's a political thing, isn't it? So
yeah,
knowing Eddie the way you kind of do lyrically these days, then it certainly makes sense that it would be a political thing. But I always imagined maybe it wasn't somebody new, or maybe he's read something the way he always does, and then he kind of writes about something he's read.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a political thing, isn't it? As always.
What did you think at the time listening to it on headphones? Then, Kev, was it an instant like, or was it a grower, or
which Dissident itself?
Yeah.
And again, like just that thing with this album, if you're going through these first few tracks, like there wasn't a song like Dissident on 10. There was nothing with that kind of guitar melody lead, like all the way through. It's like, oh, that was different straight away. I mean, my knowledge of music then is not what it is now, but I still kind of knew there was something different. It just felt different, and I loved it straight away. I mean, the melody is so wonderful on that song. And the way Eddie sings it as well, you can hear it's like every note, as always, is just on the money.
Yeah.
And like when we get to play, we do play this one quite a lot actually. Again, you just don't appreciate how hard some of these songs are till you try and do them. You listen to them and it's just oh yeah, he's just singing this, and oh my god, you get halfway through that song and you've got like double vision and everything. It's really, really hard, and it's honestly.
Is that not the red wine, Kev?
A bit of both, but again, I always make sure it's in the first part of the set, so we just get it out of the way. It's okay after that.
I think you've probably become an alcohol dependent, so I think you should fill the bottle up with Vimto or something.
Functioning.
Just so it still looks good for the show, but it's actually Vimto or Ribena.
Sure at some point. I'm sure that's happened.
No, it's not. I had to stop doing it because when we first started, Rob, if you remember, if you think back to like the Crazy House shows and stuff like that, yeah, it's like I'd be like wrecked for the last part of the gigs. I wouldn't remember the end of the show, so I was like, right, I've got to stop that. But then obviously we got a bit bigger, and then people are like, well, don't you do the wine? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Just leave it on stage. Then,
yeah. And I just started passing it around more. I can't drink it. I don't know how he does. He does like 2 bottles, 3 bottles sometimes. I don't know. I forget my name when I get halfway through. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, what I was saying about the guitar, the melodic guitar part, at the time it came out, when you think about it, plus even think what he did on the first album, all the distinctive solos, there was a lot of technical, like guitar wankery going on, and it's just the melody, isn't it? It's just a nice, simple melody all the way through. Just keeps on going. And I think that chord kind of taught me something about backing off a little bit at the time. It's really cool.
Yeah, the rhythm guitar, it's very Hendrixy, I think. And it just kind of, it goes for quite a while, doesn't it? Like just with some really nice rhythmic playing.
Yeah, man. I love the verse part. I mean, the chorus is awesome too. The way it descends, it's really cool. All open voicing, so it's massive.
Yeah.
And then, but then the when it moves to the C, and he just starts doing these lovely little runs, and it's a cracking little rhythm part in that verse. I think I love doing that. I love the tones on that. It's like you can say this about all of it, and there's a load of guitar players on here. You just got to appreciate how good those guitars sound, and especially on that one. I think that like the neck pickup Les Paul tone of McCready's guitar, and that just syrupy and thick.
Gretsch
on that.
Yeah,
it's definitely. Rob always does it on a Les Paul, but it always sounds. But it's thick, isn't it? It's nice and it fills the space up beautifully. So yeah, there's great guitar playing all over that one. Actually, it's a real guitar player's tune. That one, I think.
The amount of times
that's happened.
The amount of times we've had this written on the set and started playing the song, and then Rob has turned around and looked and gone, "Oh, it's that one. Okay." Honestly. Yeah, and Rob starts the song as well, so that always makes it really interesting.
Yeah. See your pants.
Yeah. The only other point I was going to say was just to kind of touch on what Adam said as well about I think this is kind of like the atypical Stone Gossard rhythm part. It's like so him, the really creative. He's one of them guitarists, isn't he? Where he just doesn't. He doesn't ever do the simple thing, if you know what I mean. It's always really creative, even if it is simple. You can tell he's thought about it, and there's never just like just gonna put a chord here, And this one in particular for me is so interesting, even as a guitarist. It's like it sounds so cool. I really love this one.
I'll tell you what I think of when I think of his playing is. It's almost like he's not playing it as a guitar. He's almost playing it as a keyboard, and maybe perhaps he is a keyboard piano player. Just these inversions and chord choices, it's unique, like you say, Kev.
Yeah, he has a rule, doesn't he? Eddie said this a few times, where he said like he's really hard to write with Stone because he has this rule where he'll never repeat himself. It's like if he won't play the same thing on another song. So if he's done something like that, for example, he'll never do that again on another song. So it's always like a longer writing process, Eddie says, when they work together. So, but it's why he's so good, isn't it? So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I came at this album from probably a different angle to you guys, because the first Pearl Jam album I heard was Vitalogy. Then I heard Versus after that, and I only heard 10 after hearing these two albums. So I didn't have a preconceived notion of what Pearl Jam were.
Yeah,
having released 10. But obviously, when you listen to 10, I can really, really appreciate what they must have been feeling after that album to follow it up.
Yeah.
Pressure. But it's almost like, to me, with this album, they were like, right, fuck everybody. We're just going to do what we want to do. We're not going to try and remake 10.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I've not done 10 as well, because it's just, there's so much stuff out there about 10. It's already been covered. So it's about time we gave this album some credit, I think.
There was always an interesting little thing I remember Bono saying back in the day as well, was at the one Bob was talking about before, the 93 MTV Awards. Yeah. And they did Animal in the sound check at the, kind of earlier on the day before the show in the evening. And Bono apparently turned around to the edge and said, this is going to make them the biggest band in the world, after he'd heard them kind of doing this thing. Because as 10 obviously made them what they were, but it was, Versus sold like 1.2 million copies in a week. It was just like, it was unheard of.
Set a record, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, and that's when it really became like the biggest. When I think of Pearl Jam back then, and you kind of, the only thing you can really compare it to in like kind of modern music is like, they were as big as like, I don't know, fucking Justin Bieber or something is now, or just that real weird kind of fame where absolutely everybody knew them, everybody knew who they were. And
wasn't that album at #1 for like 5 weeks or something as well in the Billboard charts in America?
Yeah.
No videos as well.
It was the biggest selling album of all time in the first week, wasn't it, for a long time?
Yeah, until very, very recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the last track on side one, which is W.M.A.
Oh my God!
You said side one.
Side one, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
man. That's proper hipster cred.
Well, it's a vinyl zone here, so yeah. We'll
right.
last song on side one, W.M.A. Rob, do you want to lead us off for this one, dude?
Yeah, like we were talking before, it's become a bit more relevant, hasn't it? Musically speaking, though, from that point, the drums, crazy. As soon as it comes in, that's what kind of you remember Dave Ramsey's for, I think.
It's like a jungle groove,
yeah.
really, isn't it?
It's a loop as well. It's an actual loop. So
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
They looped like a couple of bars, actually put it into a sampler and looped it, and then layered all the percussive parts as well.
Ah.
Yeah, and I mean that's it's one of those tracks as well that you don't think it's that easy to reproduce, is it? Obviously, because a lot of the guitar effects and things like that, it's feedback. It's trying to just drag things in out of nowhere almost. But the drums, fabulous.
Yeah. Have you ever done this song live?
We do it as a tag in Daughter. We do that thing where you kind of get
yes, that's it. Yeah.
The outro for Daughter, and you kind of put different things in for that. And I sing W.M.A. quite a lot. Again, because it's like it would be really. I think they themselves have only ever done that song a handful of times.
Yeah.
And one of them actually was on the Atlanta, Georgia concert I was talking about before. They did it. And they got a guy called Doug Pinnick from a band called King's X, who was
King's X, yeah.
And he got up and he kind of did a co-vocal thing with Eddie as well, and it was fantastic. It was really, really, really good. But yeah, it like we were kind of touching on before with the political thing. You know, we were writing about these things in 1992, 93, and it's just
Rodney King, wasn't it? It was Rodney King as well.
Just as relevant today. So that's why it always boils my piss when you see people, I don't like Pearl Jam anymore because they've become political. It was like, where were you? You know, what band have you been listening to all this time? There's every single album has a political statement on it of some degree. So, I just have to say that I hate you people.
I don't know if you've got anything to add to NWA. What does it stand for?
NWA.
NWA.
W.M.A. It's
W.M.A.
white male American.
Yeah. Do you know what though? It's interesting that you say that, Mike, because I was thinking the only band that would have had or any act that would have had a track that dealt with this kind of subject matter would have probably been hip hop acts or something like that. You can't find, I don't think, many examples of any bands from that period or even pretty much going through today that's willing to take on subject matter like that and to do it so viscerally and so well. When we talk white privilege has become this thing that people understand now, and this song couldn't possibly sum this up anymore, would it? Could it? He won the lottery when he was born. What a lyric, what a line, and it follows through all the way through that. So I can't say enough good things about this song, really. And I love doing the tag when it's live and you start singing that lyric, because it is an excuse. If there's one part that you can discern from it, it is that that part. And I love dropping that in just as a little kind of Easter egg when we jam on that, because it's so much fun to play. But yeah. That's it, really. I suppose I'd say I could talk about it for ages, and as I say, how much respect I have for Eddie Vedder for tackling it, but also doing it so well, and the music's so unsettling and unnerving as well to match the lyric. It's a great song.
Okay, well let's flip over to side two, and we'll kick off with Blood. This is so heavy, Kev. It must be a nightmare for you to sing this one.
Yeah, which is why we've done it about 3 times in 10 years. Yeah, it's, oh my God. I swear, and I've never forgotten this, one of the last times we played it. To be honest, I do love playing it, and we'll definitely play it a lot more. But the last time we played it and trying to sing it properly, I felt something come out of my voice. I felt something come out my throat. When you're really, really trying to sing it. And I felt a piece of something just come out, and I was like, oh my God, that can't be good. And I think I had a sore throat for about 3 months after that. So I think I broke something the last time we played.
And is this midway through a tour as well?
Yeah, it was.
So you had a gig the next night?
Yeah, usually, yeah. So, but it's again the unusualness of the song. It's such a weird angular you know, riff and bizarre drumming and all that kind of stuff. And again, you can feel how many of these songs came from like jams and stuff like that. You know, they're just smashing it out either on tour or in the studio, and they kind of shape it into a song. And I think that's why it's such a fucking angry album as well. You know, there's just loads of that real rawness, isn't there? So it's not overthought. It doesn't feel like.
Yeah, there's an urgency, isn't there, on it? Like, you know, in a hurry to finish it, almost in a good way.
Is this not another one with that crazy daughter tuning?
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Again, yeah.
Drop D for me. Crazy tuning for him then.
Yeah, so it's thingy for you, isn't it? And then you're on that weird GBD thing.
Yeah, he had a guitar that was in it, and again, every time there was a song where he was just like, I'll just try it with this, you know, and then he's got these handful of tunes that are all in this mad tuning, but it's great, isn't it? Because again, it adds to like the whole different sound of the band. Like, because I'm sure there were other bands at the time who were messing around with things like that, but it's weird. It's good when you've got like a unique tuning like that then they just deploy that way in, you know, over a few times anyway. Yeah, it brings a cohesion to the album in a way, doesn't it? I suppose that you're sort of like a motif almost, like you're coming back to that guitar sound of that sort of weird, big, bright, but ridiculously heavy and like a lot of complexity in the chords because of the intervals and everything. So
as well, I like just to say as well, like vocally, like again, if you think of the way Eddie sings that song, he'd not sung anything like that until that point. It was like the first time you really heard him being a fucking out and out rock singer, you know, just screaming and stuff. It's everything, like, you know, he always had this really powerful but quite controlled voice, and that was like the first time you hear him just absolutely lose it for like 2.5 minutes. It's really wonderful. Like, yeah.
Well, I do see Pearl Jam as a classic rock band. Certainly the first 3 albums, rather than grunge. Rob, what do you think? What do you think about that, Rob?
About thinking them as a classic rock band.
Yeah.
Well, I never liked the grunge label, and I don't think anyone did they?
No.
I don't think anyone liked being said they were into grunge. And for me personally, I know it's controversial, but I wasn't into Nirvana. They weren't my thing. Pearl Jam were very much.
Same here.
That was it for me. So no, the grunge thing never set with me. And I was into massive hair rock at the time, and Pearl Jam kind of
was
kind of brought
into it. Like you've announced that.
Are you like Stu up either some butthead with a Winger t-shirt on?
Yeah, man. Motley Crue though.
Yeah. He drops Motley Crue in occasionally live, like just literally when there's a little bit of a lull, you'll get a Motley Crue riff just randomly.
Yeah.
Ken loves that, you can tell.
It brought the taste into it for me.
They were sold as a classic. That was kind of like the marketing for them back in the day. They were very much like sold to people. I know there was the grunge thing, but the thing I always remember people saying about them was that they were very much a kind of a classic rock band. And I never, you know, you think of grunge, you think of Mudhoney and all of these, you know, the Meltons and
the solos.
Yeah, you know, the really, you know, bands using fuzz pedals on everything and all, and they were never that band. That was never for them really.
They were too musical.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it was always musically, I thought, too complex to be like grunge if it had such a thing. You know, grunge if it was a thing, was always like, you know, power chord, you know, punk and stuff like that. And
if anything, the grunge element of it was the low production that they started to apply, because that's what they got stick for, wasn't it, on 10? The production value, their peers and everything. So if anything, that was kind of the grunge element, if you like.
Yeah, too polished, too much sheen and all that kind of stuff. Which, to be fair, even the band themselves didn't like the production, did they? Which is why they redid it on the 10 Redux thing quite a few years later. So.
I actually prefer the original, though, to the Redux version, you know.
Do you think that's just memory, though? Do you think? Because I'm like that as well. You listen to it, you think, because I remember like that. You know what I mean?
See, this is interesting because I really like the Redux. I like that you can hear the guitars clearly. I feel like there's just too much washy reverb, but there's too many things bouncing off each other. There's not enough detail for me in 10 as it originally. And then on the Redux, it sounds like a live band. It does sound different, and I think that's why people puts people's backs up a little bit because it just sounds so different. But I quite value that. Yeah, and I'm not saying, you know, it's all taste. There's no right or wrong answer or anything. But like, I like being able to hear the detail in the guitars a bit more without so much verb on stuff. You know, so that's just my 2 pence on it.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's a valid comment. Yeah, there is a lot of I think it is a memory thing, Rob.
Yeah, definitely. We just treasure it, don't we? You treasure.
I mean, we just started. I just started learning guitar as well when I heard that album. In fact, because as I said, it was the third Pearl Jam album that I heard, and when I heard, I know it's a bit cliche now, but when I heard Alive for the first time, I was like, what was that I just heard? And I played it 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Not on guitar, just the CD. I had the CD version back then. I'm ashamed to say. All right, well, let's move on to the next track, Rearviewmirror. Now, Adam, you said this was your favourite track on the album, so do you want to start us off?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just an absolutely massive tune, isn't it? I mean, it starts out, it's unrelenting straight away. It's the pace of it. You know what I mean? It's a good driving song, which makes sense, doesn't it, for the subject matter? But it feels like, listening to that tune in a car is going to make you drive fast, isn't it? And yeah, it's another one where I just think, like, it's a 3. How many other songs on that album have 3 guitar songs? With Eddie playing on them that he wrote.
Did Eddie play on Versus?
Yeah, man, that's his tune.
It was Vitalogy when he.
That might be one of the first ones where his guitar part's like the main part on it, which is So there's all sorts of cool things the way that they make the 3 guitars fit together on that. I love.
Absolutely. The end of the build.
Yeah, the Stone part is really fun on that because it's quite stripped back in a lot of ways. Like, it's just like one note in the first chorus, and then it's just like the dead of the A strums, which are just loads of space. Same with all of it through. Really, Stone doesn't really get into it and start battering the guitar until the very end of the song. And I love that. I love that sort of tastefulness that he shows there, even in it's a song that you would almost. It sounds bigger and heavier because of the space that is allowed for the bass to drive it and the guitar to come through clear. And yeah, I mean, obviously Rob can talk about the guitar. There can't be more fun guitar solos to really do than Rearview. That's got to be one. That's one where I'm a bit jealous to foot on the monitor and just and let that rip. I mean, that's just that's the stuff dreams are made of, isn't it, man?
Or get carried away and just hang on a little bit too long because you really like it.
Yeah.
You pay attention to the original a bit more and go, okay. Because it turns into something else, doesn't it, live half the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kev, you was talking about before that Ed slept in his car when they were recording it.
Yeah.
Do you reckon he wrote that song in his car and looking through his rearview mirror, or what do you think?
It was. I know he said that the riff itself was something he used to just play to warm up on the guitar. So
I love it how it starts with 2 A's.
Yeah, so it's something he used to use to just warm his fingers up, and he said he just kind of kept playing it, and then the whole thing came to him. But again, I think it's kind of, if my memory serves right, I think it's kind of indirectly linked to the Mama San trilogy with like the Alive thing and the relationship with his dad and all that kind of stuff as well. I think it's kind of like a kind of revisiting of that story from what I remember. But yeah, I mean, as Adam was saying, it's the first kind of instance of that 3 guitar thing, although I'm pretty sure when I've listened again to the new mixes, that Ed plays actual guitar on Porch as well, or back on 10. I'm pretty sure he wrote that. I mean, that's something, when they do it live now, he starts it too, doesn't he, sometimes? But and the other one on this album was Elderly Woman. He plays the acoustic on as well, doesn't he? So, but with Rearview, yeah, it's one of my favorite songs to play live. When we get to that end section, when it comes out, and it's the saw things, and the crowd are screaming and everybody, oh Jesus Christ, it's like there are a few better feelings than hitting that point, and when everybody screams rearview mirror, my God, even the hairs now just went up on my arm. Is it like a 3-part vocal split? Do you usually get the crowd to sing that? Yeah, it's like I like do one part, and then like Jay was doing the other part, and then we kind of mix it. But then I always try and get the crowd to do like the answer part, so it kind of works like that. But yeah, as I say, that whole part, once you get to that last bit, and it's just ramping up. My God, the last little bit. But like, if you listen to the actual recorded take of that, you hear Dave Abaziz throwing his sticks across the room at the end. They pushed him. Yeah, they pushed him that hard on recording that song to get it absolutely right. And he said by the end of it, he just wanted to kill someone. He said he literally finished that. Hands were like bleeding, and he just threw his sticks across the room. And so yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful, intense song.
Yeah, we had Adam filling in for the vocals, didn't we, on the end of that one as well? He started to join in on that one, didn't he?
Yeah, I wasn't invited, but like, I
Yeah,
still.
oh no, but it needed it. It sounded good. It worked.
Stone does it live, doesn't he? Stone does all
Yeah,
that.
he closed in, yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next track, which is Rats. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started listening to the album, this was a track that I skipped initially, but now it's one of my favourites on the album.
Right.
The guitar solo, I think it's the best guitar solo on the album.
And it's Stone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Stone, you need to start us.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, I'm not gonna. I would just completely agree with you. You know, well, actually, I loved it right from the start. I think it's great. Like it's kind of sinister but groovy. You know, the intro, and it's got this great.
I was only 10, by the way.
Fair enough, but it's got all sorts of great things and little elements that come into that, doesn't it? And the riff after, the solo's boss, and it's like I don't think Stone did loads of great solos, but it's the closest. It almost sounds more like Mike. He would have been forgiven for thinking that was McCready. But it's got some great little elements, that solo, the little run up, it kind of goes like Mixolydian almost, with like these little natural notes that, again, it's just Stone getting outside of the box in terms of guitar playing. Really, he's not thinking like pentatonic shapes and boxes. He's just like following the nose, really, and he does. And it's got some really tricky little widdly bits in and stuff that he's obviously picked up from Mike. And it's great that to do. And just loads of little, like the riff after the first chorus, where they bring up, when it does all those bends and things, that kind of goes a little bit country, but all the like hammering on the open E chord. Yeah, belter.
Maybe he looked out and his guitar was still in this weird open G variation tuning. On the solo. Or maybe not, maybe he's just shut up.
Yeah, I think it's that.
I like playing the slide part. Well, yeah, it's a fan favourite. It's one of those that we would actually throw in. People have asked for ages.
Yeah, do you know what? It's probably one of our most requested songs.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when we put out the little request threads every year, it's like, what runs to play? The amount of people that say Rats without
just people shouting it during the gig.
Yeah.
You always get it, don't you? Every gig, wherever you go, people always shout for Rats.
Definitely.
Or they're just insulting us, one or the other.
That's more likely. That is more likely.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to the next track then. Elderly woman behind the counter in a small town. It's got to be the longest name for any single ever, I would imagine.
Eddie Cops too, doesn't he, on Live on Two Legs?
The longest title in the Pearl Jam catalogue, as he says. Yeah.
Well, on my CD version of this, I remember at the end of Rats, there's a massive space before the track comes in.
Yeah. I listened to that album today just to kind of like, because we knew I was going to do this, and that struck me because I was trying to remember whether it was this or is it Leash? Yeah, I wasn't sure which was next, and it was mad that they left that much space on it, because then it's almost like the impact on Elderly Woman, isn't it? It's just like, where does that come from? It just starts,
has the vocal counter, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Isn't that what it blocks out for that? Is that the gap, or is there?
No, I think it's just at the end of Rats. It's just loads of space, and then it just starts, with the intro to that song, and it really does like counterintuitively knock you for six in a weird way.
It's a good 10 seconds.
Yeah,
definitely. Get mixed up.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Mike.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most simplest Pearl Jam songs, I would say, certainly up until that point. Kev, do you do this one on your own?
We do it. I'm trying to think. It's been that long. What do we do on this?
We used to do it as a full band. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Where we start, I think, kind of in fact, it's from memory now. It is
more upright bass, isn't it?
It's another one of them. Yeah, fretless uprights, and we start. But again, it's one of them. Like the volume that the crowd sing this is louder than us every night without fail.
To be honest, for the last couple of shows, you haven't sung the first verse, have you? You leave them to it.
That's what I was trying to remember then what way we got round to doing it. But
I come in on the chorus.
I cue them in, don't I? So it's kind of.
I come in the chorus when it all kicks in. Yeah, that's what we all kind of do in this these days.
Which is good, because then you're getting paid to let other people sing, so that's always a good thing.
Catch your breath. 6/8 as well. How many songs have they done in 6/8 before?
Yeah, good point.
I use it for teaching all the time.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's true.
Because
Yeah.
again, it's that simplicity, isn't it? It's a simple song, and
Yeah.
I've introduced so many kids to Pearl Jam with that song. So they go, who's that voice? What's that strange voice coming out of that song? There you go.
Yeah,
good
it's
one.
just like some of the basic chords as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice and
Ideal
easy,
for
straight.
beginners. I'm going to nick
And the
that one, Rob. I'm going to nick that and use that one. Today we're going to have a look at playing in 6/8 time.
Here we go.
Country licks all over that as well from McCready.
Oh, well, the lead
Lovely.
part, of course.
Yeah.
So simple, so effective. Doesn't need anything else. Not flash. That's all it needs.
Yeah.
And I always get people watching me at gigs for that too. You always notice, like, yeah, he's done it.
Yeah. Box ticked.
Yeah, box ticked.
Well, let's move on to Rob's going out song, which is Leash. Again, another favourite of mine as well. So, Rob, come on, let's let you off the leash, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It's one of my favourite songs that we've probably played the least in some ways, haven't we?
I think
in London years ago. Just massive song, weird song as well, musically as well. The key change at the end, watch out for that. Yeah, that happens, doesn't it? Yeah, it leaps up, doesn't it? As well? Yeah, and it's a hugely guitar part on it.
I think we played Leash probably 3 or 4 times in 10 years.
And it's not a case of just because there's that many songs. Yeah, it's just one of those. It's not that, again, I love it. I love the song to pieces. It's just so aggressive as well. I'm guessing it's probably more to do with how it is vocally. Am I right?
It's almost impossible to sing. It's
Try
honestly
to that. Yeah.
Probably the hardest song to sing, I think.
And I think Pearl Jam do that as well. That's the reason you don't often hear them doing it too.
It's oh my god, yeah. That Blood and Worldwide Suicide are the 3 that I just want to peel myself after we've played. It's just, honest to God, really, really difficult. But it's a great song, and again, it's like it was an older one as well. They wrote it around the time of all the 10 stuff as well. It should have been
12-string thing on the bass, isn't it?
Yeah, because they did it at 92 at Roskilde or whatever it was, Pink Pop and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hell of a song, and such an anthem as well. You know, just another
Unite.
Yeah, great song, but again, almost impossible to sing. So, thank you.
I've got a just on my notes that it's actually about the same girl as Why Go is about.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes. What was her name? I remember her name as well. But yeah, you're right. It's the same girl. Yeah, who was apparently like sectioned by her parents for smoking weed and stuff like that. So yeah, you wouldn't have lasted, Rob. Definitely not. But
I don't think any of us would have.
Yeah, yeah, but it's the same girl. Yeah, I keep forgetting. I know her name as well. Yeah, you're right. It's the same kid. It's the same kid he's talking about.
I haven't got the name here.
Well, we have played it loads in Pracky, I think. Say loads. We played it. It's a boss, isn't it? It's got that da 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 da, and it's also it's like a horn part, that isn't it? You could put that on a trumpet or something, and it would sound boss. It's amazing.
Sounds like a game show theme or something like that.
Yeah, it does actually.
Well, let's go on to the last track of the album, Kev's favourite. We touched on it before, Indifference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I say, I just think it's one of their best ballads in the whole of the career. It's again the simplicity of it. You know, you've got a fretless upright bass like carrying an entire 4 or 5 minute kind of rock alternative pop song or something like that, which is just, again, it was unheard of, wasn't it, really? The guitars just providing all these little textures and atmospheres and stuff, but then, like, lyrically, it's like, again, it's not even, like, if you break the lyrics down, it's nothing too dense lyrically, but it's just, he sings it like it is, like, the end of the world or something, It's just so like emotional and heartfelt, and I mean, it's a given with Eddie anyway, but he is literally singing every note like his life depends on it, and that's that thing for me, like when you hear him and them doing it, it just even now, how many years later we listen, 17 years later or something, and it's still, I put that on now and I close my eyes and I'm like, oh man, this song, even to this day, it's just
it definitely leaves you wanting more for the next album.
It's a wonderful, wonderful song. Seriously, in my top 3 Pearl Jam songs of all time. Absolutely love it.
That's quite surprising, but now we've talking about it. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Wonderful song, like.
Rob, are you indifferent about Indifference?
Only because I get it mixed up with Dissident, but yeah.
He's in Dissident.
That's I'd never get it that way around though, because that would be disastrous. Can you imagine? No, they never get it wrong that way around. Always think of it live. Always think the bass part's solid to play as well. And Jay's always done a boss job of that. But it's the atmosphere live as well with that track. It's complete. It's one of those where you can all sit back and you create an atmosphere. You're trying to let the song breathe a little bit, but it's atmospheric. It's always been atmospheric live every time we played it without fail. Like you said, you could hear a pin drop, couldn't you, in the crowd when we're playing that one?
Yeah,
and Kevin never has to go for it vocally. Like you can back off, can't you? Completely. Yeah. You can hear it so well in the crowd. Brilliant. Love it. And again, guitar-wise, it's one of those where you just back off. You've got to play what's necessary, what you hear on the album, because you can go too far with the delay. And I'm using it's the Ebo one as well.
Yeah, it's an Ebo one, isn't it, on that? Yeah.
Use the Ebo with the delay, yeah. So I've got to run over and make sure I pinch that off Kev before the song starts. Otherwise, that can be a disaster as well. Yeah,
you could just, buy your own Ebo, but
Apparently, that's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy thought, eh? I just go back to the bass part. I suppose it's mad that he's done that using the harmonics and things like that. Shows his technique, and obviously credit to Jay, he's done it live. It's just hard enough wrestling an upright bass, but then to that specific technique for any non-musical instrument players involved, it's very delicate. It's not depressing the strings. It's a very delicate technique that he has to use there, and it must be really hard, and it's hard to get that right in front of loads of people and with the intensity of a live gig and things like that. But just to write that part and then to build the song out from it the way they do, I think that's it's just fantastic. All the instruments come together on that.
But the way you think of what you play on that too, Ad, when you're doing Stone's parts, how kind of rhythmically kind of unusual, I suppose it is, the parts that Stone played.
Yeah. I mean, it's I love his tone on that. It's very clean. I remember that was something you kept coming over to me in practice. It needs to be cleaner. It needs to be pristine, that clean sound, and you almost can't. And it's weird because we always want to hide behind gain and stuff for sustain and stuff with that live.
Can't hide behind anything.
No, it's completely everything in that song is so exposed in a great way though. I just think you can close your eyes with that, and you really are in a different place, aren't you? It's a soundscape, I suppose, for lack of a better word, landscape.
Yeah.
And also from that period of time where Jeff Ament was probably one of the best songwriters in the band. You think of some of the songs that Jeff was involved in as the kind of musical songwriter and arranger, and I mean, Indifference, and obviously on the 10 stuff as well. Jeremy and Wygo and Oceans, and all these other wonderful things. And Jeff is a seriously underrated songwriter, and that's for me one of his best. Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. But just being able to having to depress, let that note ring while then doing harmonics with another, it's just it shows the level that he's at as a songwriter and a bass player at that stage, and to be to be able to put that together and make it work on a record. Again, I don't think you hear anybody in mainstream rock or pop music doing that sort of thing at that point.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well, you've convinced me there. It's going in my top 10 now.
Yes.
Well, it's been absolutely amazingly interesting speaking to you guys about definitely my favourite Pearl Jam album, the heaviest Pearl Jam album, and to be continued. I'd love to do Vitalogy with you guys at some point, maybe in the future. But the burning question is, just to kind of see us out, in 2023, will you be performing Versus album in its entirety?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
fantastic.
I didn't mention before, but this is the one that got me into Pearl Jam, because when 10 came out, I was listening to metal, just hair metal constantly.
Same as me then, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Minus the hair metal. I wasn't listening to the hair metal.
Oh, really?
No, I was Led Zeppelin all the way.
If you're doing any future podcasts on Warrant and Poison and stuff,
good.
Honestly,
get the blusher out. It'll be good.
I think there's more chance of Kev doing Blood 12 times in a set.
Fucking no chance.
All right. Anyway, Adam, thank you very much. Kev, thank you. Rob, God bless you.
Cheers. Good to meet
Thanks,
you, Mike.
Mike.
Nice
Good to
one.
speak to you.
Really
Cheers,
enjoyed it.
guys.